Hello, welcome to episode 12 of the Eldenwood Craft podcast. My name's Emma and I'm recording today, 1st of December, from my home here in Surrey in the south of the UK. If you've been here before, thank you ever so much for coming back. It's great to have you back again. If this is your first time visiting, big hello to you. Thank you ever so much for stopping by. What you're watching is a podcast all about my crafty life. Usually it's knitting. Sometimes if I have had time to do any other crafty little bits and pieces, then I will show those off. But today it's principally all about what I've been knitting, and I've got everything set out down below. Show notes and all the other usual bits and pieces that podcasters say are in the down bar below. Show notes will also appear in the in my Ravelry group. There's an Eldenwood Craft Ravelry group, but all the links are down below, as I said. So what I'm wearing today, very simply, it's my Vertices Unite shawl. You will have seen this before. It was finished fairly recently, and actually I've been wearing it a huge amount. Now that the weather's getting colder here in the UK, it's been perfect to wrap around my neck. I really like it. I've had quite a few compliments about it as well, so I'm really chuffed with it. So what have we got coming up today? Just looking at my show notes, just the other side of my camera. So we've got some finished objects. It's all the usual stuff really. Some finished objects, some whips, a quick couple of minutes on my knitting plans, and then some chat at the end. And I will have some bags to show you right at the very end that are going in a shop update very soon. So without further ado, what should we look at first of all? I think we'll do the finished objects because they're right here. I feel like I've been knitting a lot. I've been knitting pretty much I've been knitting as consistently as I normally do, but I don't feel I've been as productive, and I'm not quite sure why. Day job work has been really busy, so maybe I'm not knitting quite as much as I thought I was when I got home in the evening. And I have the same feeling about the bags that I've been making in my Etsy shop. I really don't know what it is, so I'm going to try and speed up on the knitting, because they're like all knitters, I have so many things that I want to knit. And I'm feeling a little bit frustrated that I'm not able to speed through my knitting as I have been earlier this year. Anyway, I do have a couple of finished objects to show you. You will have seen them if you follow me on Instagram. But here they are in real life. Not really, is it? So, my first finished object that I'm going to show you is a pair of socks. If you follow me on Instagram, you will have seen them before. If not, you saw these on my previous podcast, and they are now a finished object. And these are they. So, plain vanilla sock using Twisted Limone yarn in her catnip base, I think. I should have all the details in the show notes. The only bit that wasn't knit using the Twisted Limone yarn was the heel flap and the toe. They are both in Knit Picks Fable. So these were knit for my daughter. She eventually, after a little bit of badgering from me, she gracefully agreed that I could knit her a pair of socks. And she chose this colourway from my stash. I knit them after, I think I cast them on about 3 times. I was getting a little bit frustrated with my knitting inadequacies. I started them in the summer and I did some really stupid things when I was knitting them. I cast them on originally for me, and I thought if I decreased round here, they would be small enough to fit my daughter's lovely slender ankles, but they just looked really silly. They were baggy here and skinny there. So I frogged them. I cast on cast on again. I can't remember how many stitches, and for some reason I frogged them again. So this is the third incantation of the socks. They are 56 stitches. My daughter has really, really slender legs, very graceful. Let's leave it there. She would kill me if I carried on talking like that. Anyway, she's got teenagers' lovely legs, and these are a little bit tight on her. So I think that must be evidence that I'm quite a tight knitter. Anyway, so it's just a basic vanilla sock, a 2x2 rib, heel flap and gusset, and a rounded wedge toe, and they're absolutely delightful. I really would like a pair of socks for myself in this colourway. So now, sadly, I have to hand these over to my daughter. If she hasn't worn them within a couple of weeks, should we say, then I might see if I can pinch them back. But I would really like her to finally see the benefit of wearing hand knit socks. So, Twisted Limone vanilla sock. Put those over there. So my second finished object is the hat that I was knitting for our knit along. More news on that later on. I knit the Ray Tooley hat by, and I am going to need to look at her name in my notes, Maria Suamila. Apologies for not getting that correct. But this is the hat. There's a very definite colour theme going on, isn't there, today? But these are my colours, and why not knit with them? So I love this hat. The story behind it is I was a knitter without a hat, and this was going to be the last winter that was going to be the case. So I decided that in order to have the motivation to knit a hat, we would have a knit along, and this was my entry for it. So it's just a basic, slightly slouchy beanie hat with a 1x1 rib, and then colour changes every couple of rows, and then a lovely decreased crown. I really love how that looks. So the yarn that I used, the navy blue, was Malabrigo sock in the Côte d'Azur colourway, and the grey is a Yantan Tetherer yarn on her Pedro base in the pavement colourway. You're going to see that again in a minute, because this really didn't take very much yarn at all. I was really surprised at how little yarn a hat takes. I forget the exact usage, but when I started using the Yantan Tetherer from a fresh ball of yarn, and I think that the grey in here took up all of 10 grams, so I had 90 grams left. So fantastic way to use up yarn. The one thing I'm not that happy about is this line down the back, and I think that's just I think that was just me tightening the yarn just a little bit too much when I changed colours. But actually, when it's on and it's worn at the back of the head, I don't notice it, and I don't really care who sees it from behind. Let me put it on for you. If this looks absolutely ridiculous, then I'm going to cut this out, because one of the reasons I didn't have a hat was because I didn't actually think I suited hats all that much. If I don't like what I see in the camera, then I'm cutting this out. Oops. I have been wearing this, and I've really enjoyed wearing it. There. So you can see it's just slightly slouchy at the back. I don't know how much you can see. My fringe is too long. I think I need a haircut. Anyway, Sorry, that's coming off. Static hair alert. Yeah, so that's the Ray Tooley hat. I didn't block it when I'd finished knitting it. It's a hat, like with socks. I don't really block socks. I put them on sock blockers to show you them on the podcast, but I very rarely will block a sock once it's been washed, unless it's a very lacy unless there's a very lacy pattern associated with it. But most socks just have a bath and dry on the radiator, and that was the same with this. So that's the Ray Tooley. So now on to whips. I have 3 whips to show you. They're down here. I have a sock, I have 2 socks, and I have a shawl. I also have somewhere, oh here, my blanket. Let me just show you my blanket. I was conscious that I hadn't shown this on the podcast in quite a long time. We are mid-square, so it's a little bit awkward, but I've done a few, now that we're getting into the colder weather, again, it's blanket time, isn't it? So I have put a few squares on fairly recently. But I know at least one person did ask how the blanket was going fairly recently. So here it is. You will have seen all this before, and the bits that I'm working on now. Lots of threads at the back. It's this section here. So this is really awkward to show. I do apologise. So I'm going to finish this square that I'm working on, which I can show you. It wouldn't be an Eldenwood Craft podcast if I hadn't dropped something. The yarn is on the floor. Bear with me a second. Right. The yarn that I'm using was one, it's Mothie and the Squid, Industrial Accident. Looks gorgeous on there, doesn't it? I think that was from Kelly when we did a swap. Apologies if I've got that wrong, but that's how that's knitting up, very bright and summery. And so once that one's done, I'm going to finish that column and then work my way through to the end there, and then work along in rows forever and ever and ever, because I cannot see an end in sight to this, and I don't really mind. I'm enjoying it. Every time I decide to knit on a square, I thoroughly enjoy it, and I do often think, why don't I pick this up more often? So I started leaving it in the living room now in the evening, and hopefully that will mean that I get a few more squares added to it. So that was just a quick update on the blanket. Now on to the other bits and pieces that I've been working on. I will show you a pair of socks first, sitting in my fabulous Hawthorne Cottage craft bag. Kate and I did a swap. I absolutely love this bag. It's on its first outing. You've probably seen these on some podcasts before. It's got poppers at the top, and this lovely, I love this button. Beautiful button, and it's a lovely generous size. So pair of socks on the go. Always got a pair of socks on the go. And in fact, just before I started podcasting today, I finished the first sock. Let me pop these on the sock blockers. Pop it on the sock blocker. Chat amongst yourselves. You might have got a sneak peek of it then. Here we go. There we are. So, this is another vanilla sock, And I am knitting this for the project that Sarah, who is Sherlock Knits on Instagram and on Ravelry, is organising. Sarah is a palliative care consultant and I think she works for Marie Curie hospices here in the UK. And Sarah decided that she wanted to give every resident of the Marie Curie hospices a pair of these socks. Now the yarn that I'm using is this. It's West Yorkshire Spinners Signature 4-ply in an exclusive limited edition Marie Curie colourway. You can only get this, I believe, in the UK from City Knits. I got it online. I don't know if they've got a bricks and mortar shop, but I picked that up online, and I decided that I wanted to help Sarah in her quest. So the plan that Sarah has hatched is to I don't know if she was planning on knitting. Sarah, you couldn't have been planning on knitting all these yourself. You must have been expecting the knitting community to help you. But Sarah needs 229 pairs of socks in time for Christmas so that she can give each resident of Marie Curie hospices a pair of lovely warm hand knit socks for Christmas. I think that's such a brilliant idea. I wish I was able to knit more than one pair, but my knitting speed isn't quite fast enough. However, I would urge you, probably if you're in the UK, it might be a bit late for overseas, but if you're in the UK and you have got time this month to knit one pair of socks, then what better cause could there be? All the details are, I will link to the details in the show notes. Sarah has written a pattern, or it's more of a recipe, as to how she knits her socks. Sorry, that's flapping around. That's available on Ravelry, and the proceeds from the sale of that pattern will also go to Marie Curie hospices, and I believe all the details of where you need to send the socks are also on Sarah's Ravelry page, but I will link down below all the details that you need to know. So I'm about to cast on sock number 2. This sock took me about a week to knit, so that was pretty good going for me. So I hope in the next week or two I will have sock number 2 done, and that will be winging its way up to Sarah. Really like this yarn. I've used the West Yorkshire Spinners Signature 4-ply for contrast heels, toes and cuffs. I've not knit a sock out of it before, I don't think, and I will do so in future. I really like the smell of it. I don't think it's a sheepy smell. I might be wrong. I don't know. Anyway, that's the yarn, that's the sock, go make a pair. The second pair of socks that I am knitting is in my lovely bag from Caroline, who is Love to Sew on Instagram. These beautiful Liberty fabrics, really, really pretty. Caroline and I also did a swap. And I should point out, and I should say, Caroline has recently started podcasting. She put her first episode out last weekend. I haven't caught it yet. It's on my queue. I wanted to watch it last weekend, but time ran away. So I'm really hoping to watch it this weekend. But Caroline is lovely. So if I can recommend a podcast that I haven't seen yet, then that's the one. Details will be down below. Hi, Caroline. And the sock that I'm just started picking up again is another, sorry I'm getting all tangled here, Bag Podcaster Looking Down. Oh, look at that. Doesn't that remind you of summertime, springtime? And here is the sock. Oh, lovely. So this is another Twisted Limone colourway. I have got the ball band here somewhere. There we go. Oh no, this is the ball band from my previous socks. So yes, it was cat mint. I said catnip. It's cat mint. So there's Twisted Limone's card. Let me see if I've got the card for. Yes, I have. Right, there we go. So this is, I'm doing really well. You can tell I haven't podcasted for a few weeks. Yarn ball band. And it's floating by. It's a 75-25 superwash merino nylon, 425 metres, so it's very generously, very generous yardage, meterage. And again, this was another pair of socks that I started on holiday and picked up again fairly recently. I went to an event in Brighton on the south coast organised by Clara Peggotty called Socks on the Beach, and that was just such a fantastic afternoon of knitting. I met some wonderful new friends and met for the first time in real life some people that I've been friendly with on Instagram. It was just it was amazing. I've never really been in that sort of atmosphere or community before, and I loved it. I was so chuffed. I was exhausted at the end of it, but we had such a lovely time knitting and chatting and just really enjoying ourselves. So I'm really looking forward to the next one. Anyway, this was the project that I took with me. And yeah, it's Karen Twisted Limone's yarn is lovely. I really like knitting with it. And once I've finished my Marie Curie socks, I'm going to work even more on that one. Nothing really to say about it. It's a 64 stitch sock. 2 by 1 rib, and the length that I've knit it, I think I must have been thinking that I was going to put an afterthought heel in, because that's a longer leg than I would normally do. I tried an afterthought heel on the other Twisted Limone socks. That's why I frogged back before. Didn't like the I didn't like it. I much prefer a heel flap and gusset, so I might just make these long-legged socks and put the heel flap in there. Anyway, so that's my second pair of Twisted Limone socks. My final work in progress that I've been working on is a shawl. Now this is a new shawl. You won't have seen this before. In my last podcast, I said that once I'd finished my Vertices Unite shawl, I was going to crack on with my colouring cardigan. That didn't happen. Haven't picked that up at all. More later. What I found I wanted to do was to carry on knitting with the pavement yarn that the hat was knitting, the Yantan Tetherer yarns. So that's the pavement yarn. And so I must have been browsing Instagram, and I may even have had this in my hand, and I saw Louise Tilbrook had published a new pattern, and I thought, oh, that would be perfect for the pavement. And it's Louise's Worth the Fuss shawl. So Louise published a fuss-free festival shawl, which I didn't knit. I think that was a sort of basic garter stitch asymmetrical triangle. I can't quite remember. I've seen lots of pictures of it. And the Worth the Fuss festival shawl is another garter stitch shawl, but it's got a few extra little details in. This is it so far. I love how that I love how the pavement yarn is knitting up, and it's getting quite long there now, but you can see that there are it's quite basic. It's nice. It's a nice easy knit. So it starts off lots of garter stitch and then a couple of eyelet rows and garter stitch and eyelet rows and so on and so forth. And I think I'm coming towards the end of the pattern as it's written, but I've got quite a lot of yarn left, so I might just carry on going until I run out of yarn. Really like that. The yarn is gorgeously soft. The garter stitch makes this a really smushy, lovely shawl, and that will, I think, get lots of wear once it is finally off the needles. I'm keeping that in my gorgeous By the Lakeside bag from Sandy. Love this bag. I've got the pattern in here. It's a paid for pattern, but I'm just looking to see if there is a lovely picture to show you. I think there is. Oh, I printed it in black and white. This probably will not show too well. But there you go. Louise Tilbrook Designs, Worth the Fuss shawl. And the fact that it's printed in black and white, grey, doesn't really matter because my yarn is grey. So that's everything that I've been knitting on. There was a little bit more actually once I had it all to hand than I thought I had. So I'm quite pleased with that. Right, what's next? Knitting plans I've written down. So yeah, what I'd really like to do as the year draws to an end, I'm not going to get all my projects off the needles because I've got there aren't enough knitting hours in the next few weeks for me to be able to do that. But what I would really like to do is to finish my Marie Curie socks, finish the Worth the Fuss shawl, crack on with my colouring cardigan, and I'm quite hopeful that over the Christmas holidays I can get quite far into that. I'm at the ribbed band at the bottom, and then it's just the sleeves to go. So by the end of the year it could be a finished object if I really set my mind to it. We've got a trip planned in December down to Cornwall at some point, so that's a good few hours of car knitting. And then we've got the holidays at the end of the month, so there will be lots of knitting time, so you never know. And I know that in my last podcast I said that once I'd finished the Vertices Unite and the colouring cardigan, I had a couple of other plans, a couple of other items that I wanted to cast on. The Marmor, is it Marmor? The Marmor cardigan and the Second Avenue shawl. So they're still in the planning. I'm trying to find the right yarn for the cardigan. I think I have tracked it down. And I'm going to go stash diving for the Second Avenue shawl because I don't want to have to buy any new yarn for that. So that's the planning. Oh, and I have, having said all that, I've got some yarn coming for my get my words out. Got some yarn coming from Giddy Yarns for my Christmas socks. Helen at Giddy Yarns had an update over last weekend, I think it was, and I had my eyes on her hot chocolate yarn, so that's going to be my Christmas cast on. So that's where I'll be. I'm really hoping that I will get another podcast in and before Christmas. So you'll be able to see what progress I've made on those plans. Right, on to the last few bits and pieces, my notes and queries section. The first thing I was just going to show you really in notes and queries is to talk about. It's the 1st of December, and if you are on social media, you will have seen lots and lots of people getting excited about advent calendars of all various different types. Now, I haven't had an advent calendar since I was very young. I suspect the last advent calendar I had was when I was still living at home. Not had one since. We do one for our daughter every year, and hers is hanging up in the living room. And she opened the it's a fabric one. It's a Christmas tree with pockets in, and I'm afraid we put chocolate in. She enjoys it. She doesn't have a lot of chocolate during the year, so we do that for her every year. But my husband and I don't know why, we've never had one. Anyway, you know where I'm going with this, I suspect. I treated myself this year, and I treated myself to this lovely, lovely box of excitement. So it's the Nora George Advent Calendar, and it was delivered weeks and weeks and weeks ago. I have been so good. I have not opened it, and I'm going to do that today for you. Okay. There's some little bits and pieces. I love these. I've not had one, but I've had my eye on one of these row counters, so I'm really pleased with that. I love this gold tissue paper. This, we all know what that is. That's a stick of rock. That's a love. I imagine that's what needs to be opened on Christmas Day. So what Tracy has done is put a lovely little mini in each of, just picked up number 1, that was lucky. So there will be, I assume, 24 bags with a gold number and a gold heart. How lovely. And I thought I would open the first door of my advent calendar for you. Quite excited. Oh, how lovely. This is so festive. Those lovely speckles. Do you do that with yarn? Do you always sniff it when you get it? How lovely. Now, I have absolutely no idea what I'm going to do with my minis. There will be 24 minis. I think these are 20 gram minis. So that's a lot of yarn. There are quite a few things I could do with these. I'm tempted to make some advent socks. So maybe I should cast those on instead of my hot chocolate socks. That's an idea. However, I don't know that I've got enough knitting time to knit a pair of advent socks between now and Christmas. Need to give that some thought. Oh, I love those speckles. Beautiful colours. Blown out a bit because I've got a big window in front of me, or just over there. But that would make nice cuff of a sock, wouldn't it? So yeah, I don't want to put all of these into my blanket. I think I've got to cast on a pair of socks today, people. It's lovely. Well, that's going to be a lovely way to spend December, opening those up every morning. I've been so good. I've been saving myself all day. It's now about, it's probably about 2 o'clock, 2:30 in the afternoon. I've been such a good girl. I've avoided social media, pretty much. So I've not been, not had the surprise spoiled. Anyway, so that's my advent calendar. I'm running out of space to put it. I've decided not to show you all the acquisitions that have come my way since I last podcasted. That was at the beginning of October, and it's now the beginning of December, so 2 months. I cannot believe that. But there's been a bit of yarn that has come through the letterbox. But I have got one skein of yarn here that I wanted to show you, simply because it was lying around. It was to hand, but it's also rather beautiful. It's from Mr. B's Yarns, and it's this Metal Guru. Metal Guru. Does everyone say that? Metal Guru. I always say it like the song, Metal Guru. Ha ha. Right. So, it's from Mr. B's Yarns. It's his Metal Guru colourway, and the colours in it are just stunning. There are so many colours in here. It's a sort of grey, greeny base, but if you look in here, you can see there are some of these sort of golden, aubany flecks, and there's some charcoaly grey, and it's just gorgeous. I fell in love with this when I saw this on his Instagram feed. And I was delighted to be able to pick up a skein. I don't know what it's going to be. It's a sock yarn. It's superwash merino nylon, 425 metres. I don't think I want to make socks out of it. It's really soft. Sorry, I've got my microphone. I hope I haven't been scratchy with my microphone. Could be a hat, actually. I quite like to knit an Aran hat, though. All these things that we need to think about. Anyway, so I was so pleased with that. It's definitely going to be cast on soon, that's for sure. Mr. B is the husband of Claire, who is Bird Street UK, who is also on Instagram. And makes really lovely bags. So I think that's a fantastic knitty household. And I encourage you, if you haven't heard of them before, I encourage you to go and check them out on Instagram and in their Etsy shops. Very, very lovely. Right. Hat-along news. So I mentioned my hat earlier, and the hat along was running through to the end of November, which was yesterday. I have not had a chance to look through all the finished objects, and I haven't had a chance to go and have a look at the Instagram hashtag posts, and I'd really like to before I draw the winner. The only other thing I was going to say in this section was just to highlight in the Ravelry group, there are a number of threads going up there now. There'll be a thread for the show, there'll be a thread for this episode. Wow, there's a huge, great, big crow outside. There are 2 of them. The crows and the magpies come and sit on top of the bird feeder and eat all the bird food, and I get a little bit cross about it. I know they need to eat, but I would like the pretty little birds in my garden instead of the big ones. Anyway, what was I saying? So yeah, so the Ravelry group. I have got a question thread in there. If anybody has got any questions that they want to ask, either about something that they have seen in the podcast, or if there's anything that you would like to know about me or my knitting or my crafting, then please do feel free to leave a question in the question thread, and I will answer it on the podcast, or I will answer it directly in the thread. It would be great to see if there is anything that you would like to know. Now, the very final thing that I've got to talk about is my Etsy shop. I don't talk about it that often on here, but I will have a shop update coming up in the next few days. I'm hoping that it will be in the next week. So week beginning Monday the 4th of December. And I'm just going to show you a few bags that will be going into the shop. You can't see that too well. These all need a bit of TLC, a bit of an iron and a spruce up and a photograph, and then they will be listed. But I've got new fabric which I really like. So that's my larger size bag, shawl size bag. Very comfortably fits three skein projects. With just a simple white lining. So I've got a large size bag, got a smaller sock size bag that's a zipper, and I also have it in a drawstring. Oops. I will have, how many of these have I got? I've got a couple of little robin bags, drawstring and a zipper. They're both sock, hat, mitten size. I've got one of these. I love this fabric so much. Got one at the moment. There may be, I'm going to try and get some more in. This is just gorgeous fabric. It's quite expensive fabric, so these bags are a little bit more expensive, but all the details will be in the Etsy shop when I update. But you can see it's, I don't know if you can see actually, it's a slightly woolly texture, and all this is machine embroidered, not by me, I hasten to add, but it's a textured print. Really like that. So that again is a large style bag. These ones are really quite thickly padded, so they feel quite luxurious actually. And again, they've got the simple white lining. And then I've got a couple of these alpine tree bags. I've got a sock size and a notions pouch. So over the weekend, as well as cracking on with my sheet bags, I will also be hoping to finish off 2 or 3 more bags to go in the shop. So the shop update will be sometime next week. I will put the date on Instagram and on my website a couple of days before the update will happen. So that's everything for today. I apologise if it's been a bit disjointed. That's me being out of practice. So my lesson to learn from today's podcast is that I must podcast more frequently. So with any luck, maybe the week before Christmas, I will do my very best to bring you another episode. Otherwise it will be probably during the Christmas holidays, I would have thought, given that we've got a bit of time. So it's been really lovely chatting to you today. Thank you ever so much for spending the time with me. If you've liked the podcast today, please do give me the thumbs up. Apparently, and I hear this from other podcasters, apparently the more thumbs up you get, the more exposure that YouTube give you. So it'd be lovely to spread the word. And do subscribe if you want to be notified of the episodes as I release them. So with that, I will love you and leave you, and wish you all a happy December, happy Christmas sock knitting, or whatever it is that you're going to be knitting this month. And I will speak to you very, very soon. Bye. Oh, not very good at this today. Right, start again. Oh, that was really weird, I think, what I did with my eyes there. I'll probably cut that out.